Hello, welcome and to this brief, quick recording that I've just put together. It isn't for the purpose of sharing with you this wonderful picture of rice paddies on Chinese farmland. It's a little bit more than that, a lot more. It is really just talk about the subject of configuration management under ITIL, the IT Infrastructure Library, as within the field of IT service management. Within the version 4 of ITIL and its practices, it distinguishes between IT asset management um, and which is a lot about the life cycle of IT assets and looking at them from a financial point of view, and maybe some legal, regulatory aspects and so on, contractual aspects. To what I wanted to talk about was configuration management. In the penultimate version of ITIL, being referred to, being abbreviated to as SACM, or Service Asset and Configuration Management. So within configuration management, right? Its main raison d'etre that is to ensure that there is accurate, there is reliable, trustworthy information, a single source of truth, if you like, um, on how services and the CIs that support them. I'll define a CI in a second. Um, is available. A kind of a logical model of the IT environment, right? And a CI, as just comment, is just a component within the IT environment, that that needs to be managed. And you know, if we look at, for example, end user equipment or end user hardware, things like computer, then it depends really how deep you want to take it, and every organization will be different. But the computer serial number, would be quite an important CI, right? It's RAM, how much memory does it have, its screen size, when does the warranty start, when does it end. So these are all attributes, or important bits of information that describe a laptop or a desktop PC, or computer that staff in or workers in your organization might be using. So I think it's useful if we have a look at but these are just some random things we'll just pick up and have this just put some context around what it is that we're kind of talking about here. Um, so the configuration management database, okay. Um, let's have a look at somebody here who's made a slide share, and really this is not wrong, so I can use it, okay. It's a logical database, right? In ITIL it talks about the difference between a CMS, a configuration management system, and a CMDB. And in essence, a CMS is a set of tools, the data, the information that will support configuration management, service configuration management, right? It's the tools, the data, the information. It's the whole thing, right? So by tool, we mean the tool or the application that you have. I know over here, for example, we've got ServiceNow, but there are a plethora of service management tools, BMC, CA, and so on. The list goes on and on. And these tools, they one point about tools, and that I wanted to mention, that I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and that I like tools. I love automation and the accuracy that comes with them, the efficiency, and so on. However, if you think back to 4 Ps of service design from the last version of ITIL, and what we have in new ITIL as well, is that the thing is that you have to bear in mind that people and culture plays a big part, right? So you can go and invest, huge sums of money in a tool, and if the people really don't really understand the process behind it, or the business value, issues to do with data ownership and how you're going to maintain all this data. Important considerations. If they're not given attention to, then the tool will not deliver the benefit, that's been that it needs to deliver based on the investment you might have put into it, right? And I tell people to do things. I always tell people when they talk about tools is, look, get your guys to do it or your people to do it in Microsoft Excel, okay? Right? Sounds a bit silly maybe, but if they can do it in Microsoft Excel, we can get the best tool and automate what they've got in Excel. We're putting things into Excel, kind of having that kind of analysis, critique, discussion, review, removing of things that don't make any sense and putting it, kind of ink on paper or pixel on screen, is an extremely valuable and important initial exercise that needs to be done. But here, when we're talking about the CMDB or a number of other, planning activities that you'll be doing, do them pen on paper first, discuss them with people, get people to have some semblance of even understanding what their role is, what they're doing, and so on. Okay, now. So CMDB, as we look in this picture here, is basically your applications, and you can think of an application as a synonym for a service, right? So you might have an ERP application, right? It has modules. You might have it might have a module for HR, for example, and it manages your onboarded staff, their benefits, their training plan tracking, and things like this. You might have a module to do with procurement, and that's where your organization links to suppliers and all of that kind of supplier contract management bit is information pieces loaded into it and automated, track, run, and so on. Okay, now in the CMDB, okay, it is you create a model of your. I don't know if this is useful at all. It is kind of useful, but I'm sure there's better ones that we can that we can find. BMC Atrium is kind of interesting because it's BMC's out of the box CMDB, yeah, right? What it calls a common data model, and you can see it's got different, different. It's got levels of abstraction, right? So, for example, one of the CIs is the person, right? And they might want to have their first name, last name. Probably wouldn't need to have a fax, right? And you probably wouldn't. You may not need a pager certainly in this area. Do pagers exist? I'm sure they do exist in many parts of the world, but you would take some this would be a nice shortcut, a nice way to start with, because you have a data model, right, given to you by a leading vendor, and it kind of like tells you, look, if I've got a hardware component, right, I've got a computer, right, I'm going to need these things, right. It may not be necessarily a computer. It says hardware system component, right? And it's got a device ID. It's got to have a keyboard, some memory, a monitor. In the monitor, these are the attributes I'd want to capture. It's going to have an NIC, a network interface card. A way to it's going to have some kind of processor. It might have a UPS and so on, a CD-ROM drive. So do you understand how complex this can be? You can start to put on quite a lot of information, right? And this can all just be one laptop, or it can be a server and so on. Okay, now I wanted to keep this short and sweet, and therefore, I wanted to just mention a couple of pointers and tips around this. I worked on a project where we because these tools have a functionality known as auto discovery, and what auto discovery does, it has these software robots that troll your network, and they go out. And so sometimes you have to leave them running for quite some time, okay? But they bring back this huge plethora of information. Sometimes all of this, right? And then they dump it into, you can have it extracted to, an Excel spreadsheet, and it really is a kind of momentous sort of thing. Now it has some pros and cons, okay. The advantage is, of course, you manage to automate information. If you sent out an army of collectors, with their clipboards and nice ballpoint pens, collecting information. If you've got, I've worked for organizations that have, 40, 50, 60,000 staff. Okay, even organizations that have 150,000 staff, right, spread across the world. And if their central IT wants to track their laptops or their servers and things. Imagine how that would look in an Excel spreadsheet, right? So you've got to be careful with auto discovery that you're capturing information that is just enough for you to do what you need to do, right? The information needs to be as simple as possible, right? And really kind of critique everything here. I mean, if I pick up any of these, these areas about about the disk drive, or CD-ROM drives, how many of our user base even have a CD-ROM drive? It could even be zero. We might be keeping, as an IT organization, images of our software in a shared area, and once a software license has been provisioned for a user, it's mapped in the CMDB and they get a link in their own Active Directory access account. So even if they format their machine or lose it and get another one, um, they just log in with their user ID, and under their personal account they'll have all of the software that they have been provisioned, assigned, that their cost center has been built for, right? um, I can talk about CMDBs and configuration management till kingdom come, right? Everything from the structure to best practice. But just going to close with a couple of points, right? One of the things that I recommend organizations is that when they create a taxonomy, when they finalize, when they, refine the structure that you see here within its hierarchical level, where you have abstractions of detail starting from the top and going down. Come up with your own CMDB, right? Map it as close to the tool as you can, right? And then link that to your incident tickets, problem tickets, request tickets, change tickets, or we'd probably call them RFCs, but not standard changes, but normal changes. So your request for change, so that within you, so that within the within your utilization of the service management tool, you're having this central database, and you're able to see the linkages. And this is extremely powerful, right? The linkages between your IT assets, your business services, your users, the different hardware, and even different software components that are being used, that are being deployed within your organization, and all of this will then go into this kind of database in the backend, and you can do some really powerful things with this. You can be doing some kind of analysis on, looking at failure, right, and frequency of failure, and saying, okay, how come? Right, okay. If you look at the 20,000 laptops we bought from that vendor 2 years ago, do you see that 70% of failure is with that brand? So that's something we need to look into. And if we procure from them again, then we need to do a little bit more Sherlock Holmes and find out what's going on. And maybe we can go and open some of those tickets and find out what was, look for patterns within that as well. You go over to problem management, right? But because the CI of the laptop in the problem ticket was mapped to the CMDB, was mapped and cross-referenced to the incident tickets, right? Because all of these things were linked together, you're able to identify that pattern, that trend. You're able to see the impact. You're able to see the relationship. This is just one of so many benefits, and really, this was only designed to be, a very kind of a very short and sweet, recording about the CMDB and configuration management, and I shall be going a lot more in depth to this, at the right time in the future. I appreciate you listening, and you're most welcome to send your comments. My email is mail@musab.co.uk. I'm interested to know what kind of challenges you face, and it's kind of I get a lot of email from people who read my publications, who visit my blog, etc. And we have some healthy discussions. So you're most welcome to drop me that message. Um, Sometimes on my LinkedIn as well, I'll put things. The reason why I don't leave the comments open on LinkedIn or my blogs or whatever is is simply because I just don't have the time to moderate them. It becomes an overhead when you open comments and people start coming in, and I've had people putting I don't know, like crazy things, love letters and silly things, right? So I couldn't manage that kind of some of that immaturity that was happening. So that's the only reason. There's no there's no complex reason as to why I switch my comments on, because some people have asked me why I do that, and simply because I just don't have the time to with my workload and things, to go back and moderate comments and run it. That's becomes like a part-time job. I do hope that my publications, my blog, these recordings and so on are beneficial, and they seem to be from the feedback and the emails that I'm getting in. So please do keep sending them and share with me. Do critique me as well. Your best friend is the one who points out your mistakes in a polite way, in a respectful and polite and kind way. So I do appreciate if I make a mistake in any of my recordings or publications, that you kind of drop me a little private message, and I will act on that. And look forward to hearing from you. Take care and wish you all the best.